وكلا نقص عليك من أنباء الرسل ما نثبت به فؤادك وجاءك في هذه الحق وموعظة وذكرى للمؤمنين.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we come to another session of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, and we've got to the part in Surah Yusuf, ayah number 31, where Zulaykha, she does a workshop on these women. And she positions them, and she makes them come and be relaxed. And that's why the Qur'an added all these words. That first is that she called them, then she made cushions for each one so that they're relaxed. And then what she wanted to do is she wanted each one to feel just normal. In some of the tafsirs it says that it's just a da'wah or something. Somebody says that it's a walima thing. But whatever it was, she wanted these women to be really relaxed. And who were these women? These women were some of the richest women in the society. So they were the ones who were gossiping about her because they were her friends. And she wanted to prove to them that she's not just, she's a beautiful woman herself. Zulaykha is a very beautiful woman. And what they're thinking is that how can such a beautiful woman, with all the money and the luxury she could ever have, go completely crazy on a young person? And that was the talk and the gossip of the town with this elite class. So she brought them in, she gave them a knife, like I said last time, and then she called out Yusuf alayhi salam. Now in calling him out, some tafsirs say that a lot of the tafsirs say that she actually made him stay in a hidden place and then called him out to come and walk in front of the women. And some tafsirs say that she just called him out for something and he wasn't aware of the fact of what was going on, and he happened to pass by these women. But whichever one it was, when they saw him, they said, Hasha lillah, they said, no way, this can't be a human being. Now, why did they say that he's got to be a noble angel? Why did they say that he's not a human being? Is because Yusuf alayhi salam, he was very, very handsome, as one. He was more handsome than any of the men in the world that he was living in. And we said that he had half, if you took the whole of humanity's beauty, of all the human beings, and you halved it, and half of it Yusuf alayhi salam got alone. So you can imagine how handsome he was. But on top of that, being a prophet, all prophets were sent to the earth with beautiful faces. All prophets were sent to the earth with beautiful faces, and one of the reasons was because if a prophet came to the earth and he looked like a person that you could just look at and say, who in the world is he? I mean, look at his face. Look at his face. Right? If people could make mockery out of his face, then that would be very difficult for that prophet to convince people. People have this prejudice within themselves. So Allah made all prophets handsome. And Allah did not make any prophet have anything on their face or on their bodies that would be a reason for people to disgust the message because of the messenger. Okay? So that was another quality that Yusuf alayhi salam had. On top of that, he had a lot of nur and a lot of light that Allah Azza wa Jal had given him. So there's a natural radiance Allah gives, okay, which Yusuf alayhi salam would have had anyway because of his beauty. But on top of that, there's another radiance which is the radiance and the nur of Iman. And the nur of Iman is something that shows on the face. My Shaykh in Bangladesh Mufti Rashidur Rahman Farooq Sahib, he said that when a mu'min and a believer prays, when he prays his salah, the constant prayer that he does eventually brings out a nur on his face. So if you look at believers, you will know which believer is a believer that prays and which believer doesn't pray. And this is something which Allah Azza wa Jal has given, and you can see this, you can see certain old people, I'll be very straight with you, certain old people, a lot of the old people we see in the masjids, they look, they look really like nice people. Allah gives them a nur on their face. And there's certain old people who don't come to the masjid, and they look aged, a lot more aged than their actual age. Or you look at them and you think, this person looks like he's at his age. Whereas other contemporaries that he has who come to the masjid, because they pray and because Allah has given them that nur, they don't show their actual age. But anyway, so there's a nur of iman that Allah gives. Now he's got the nur or the light of prophethood on his face. He's got the nur and the light of iman on his face. And on top of that, why they said this is not a human being is because how can somebody have such beauty and women would die for this individual, and this individual would not want to start picking and choosing women. This was the main crux of the reason why they said he must be an angel. How can you have so much beauty, and you possess that, and you know that you just turn faces around wherever you go? And Allah has given, this in itself, we need to learn that this in itself is the fitna. So some people get a lot of wealth and people just turn around towards them because of their wealth. Some people because of beauty, people turn around to them. Some people because of intelligence. Some people because of their chivalry or their boldness. Allah has given such stature to them that you look at them, you just want to like, wow, just they gather a following wherever they go. But it becomes a fitna. It becomes a means of a test. Why? Because that very reason that attracts people also attracts a lot of trouble. People get jealous. People get jealous of the fact that you've been blessed with so much. But anyway, Yusuf alayhi salam is in this position. I mean, look at some of these celebrities out there. I won't name them because of the reason that people say, he mentioned him. Oh my God, he mentioned my love. Yeah. There's certain celebrities out there that girls just die for. There's certain singers and musicians that they just die for. First is the beauty of their voice, and second is the beauty of their face. Right? When the two things go together, even just the beauty of the voice, people just flock towards them just because of the voice. And you can see this in the world right now. But what I want to say to you is that these people. What do? They're in a position where hundreds of women are after them. Girls are screaming behind them. They're in a car, and the people can't just let go of. They will take photos of them. They will hang them in their rooms. They will follow their lives. They will buy any magazine that has any picture of them inside it. You can see how wild people get to when they see one of these celebrities that has got a beautiful face and is an actor, or she's an actor, or he's a singer, or she's a singer. Okay, this is what they do. Now imagine if one of these had the strength of beauty of pulling hundreds of millions of people towards them. What the world would do, if they found a celebrity like that. Now Yusuf alayhi salam is a hidden pearl, and when he came out, these women were sitting there. They've still cut their hands. They haven't even realized the pain that they've got, and they're saying these words. They're talking and they're saying, "In hadha illa basharun karim." This in hadha illa malakun karim. This is how they're thinking, Zulaykha, no wonder you've gone crazy for this man. Like, we all want to go crazy for this man. They still haven't felt the pain of their own bodies. Now, when that initial sight of Yusuf alayhi salam had worn off, then they started to feel, oh my God, what have we done? Hey, bring something, Zulaykha, bring something quick. And that's when she said, فَذَلِكُنَّ الَّذِي لُمْتُنَّنِي فِيهِ. You blamed me and gossiped about me, about going crazy on a young person, younger than my age, while I have all this pride and luxury and everything else? Well, that was him. Right? That was him. So she proved her point. What was her point? Her point was that, your gossip was for nothing. You don't know how beautiful this man is. Now that you know, what are you going to say? Now, after giving them something to, put over their hand, whatever, like a plaster, whatever it was, to cover their wounds and so on, she made a point. She said, وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِي فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. This is the man who I've gone completely crazy for, that I want for myself. And I try to seduce him towards me. فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. Yet he has remained completely. Now this is the word she uses, ista'sam, which means that he has remained completely, absent from the completely sort of, person. Isma is something when a person has a status where they stay away from the sin, completely detach themselves away from the sin. So what she's trying to say is that this man, I'm doing my best to capture him, but there's no way I've got a way of getting this man. Fastasam. He's completely detached himself from this sinful, nature. Wala illam yaf'al. If he doesn't do what I'm telling him to do, then he will definitely be imprisoned and he will be made to be disgraced. So she's saying that if he doesn't accept my proposal, then he's finished. First, he'll be in prison. No one, we'll put him in prison, we'll throw the key away, basically. I don't care whether he's got a crime or no crime. I've got the power to convince my husband to put him into prison. Because don't forget, her husband has got that, authority of the ministry of, the ministry in the country of over the police and over those who look over the justice system. So now Yusuf alayhi salam knows that she's going to use every single thing to try and bring him to her. And now think about it. These women who are they call them the elite of the city. All of them are going to go back home and they're going to chat even more. Oh my God, did you see the beauty of this guy who's living in that house over there? If I could get another chance to see him, they're all after him. But because of the respect they've got for Zulaykha, what they did is, at that moment the tafsirs mention that they said to Yusuf alayhi salam, they had Yusuf alayhi salam, they called him over and they said, look, just give in to her demand. Give in to her demand and you will remain safe from what she's trying to, throw you into, which is the prison. And you will be a person who will stay away from, being disgraced and abased, just for not accepting what she's asking you to do. Now, how do we know that they are calling, now all of these women are trying to now seduce him to try and get him to accept what Zulaykha is saying? Is because in the next ayah, when he makes a dua to Allah, he says, my Lord, prison is better and more beloved to me than the thing all these women are calling me to. Subhanallah. So now here's Yusuf alayhi salam, he's got so much beauty and he's still staying away from this, and he makes a dua to Allah. Now this is there's a massive lesson in this. If we're sincere, Allah will test us, yes. And if Allah's given us, something that He's testing us with, whether it's beauty, intelligence, whether it's, strength or a skill that you've got, whatever it is, whatever Allah has given you, because every single one of you that's listening to this, you've got something which people want. Okay? You've got something which people love, something which people admire. Now, whatever it is, and you've got a fitna, and you're in that position, you've got to turn to Allah, and that's the only way you can stay away from such, such a situation where you're in a catch-22, to be honest with you, because if you go this way, you've got hellfire, and if you go that way, then you've got the prison, or you've got something else that you make life difficult for yourself. So either way, you're going to have to face an evil. But you go for the lesser of the two evils, and this is what Yusuf alayhi salam is doing. That he makes dua and says, "Oh Allah, I'd rather go to prison. So make that happen, that I go to prison." And he pleads to Allah by saying, "Wa illa tasrif anni." If you don't turn, if you don't turn this whole thing away from me, if you don't turn their plot away from me, meaning that now that these women know, once Zulaykha has tried this, she might try something else, the women might try something else to put me in a difficult position. He says, if you don't turn me away, oh Allah, asbu ilayhinna, I'll fall prey to what they're trying to do, trying to call me towards, wa akum min al-jahilin, and I'll become of those who are ignorant. Now, what does this mean? What is Yusuf alayhi salam saying here? That if you don't turn me away from what they're calling me towards, and from their plot. What Yusuf alayhi salam is saying is not that, oh Allah, if you don't turn me away from there, I'm going to commit zina. He's not saying this. What he is saying is that I am pleading to you, Allah, that only through your power can I remain safe from what they're calling me towards, from zina and so on. Only through your help. And he's putting full trust in Allah by saying that only you can save me from this. And even myself as a human, even the prophets, the prophets, where does the prophets' powers come from? The prophets' power come from Allah Azza wa Jal. If Allah did not, Allah says in the Holy Qur'an, in the 15th juz, just to reinstate what we're saying here as a tafsir, Allah said in Surah number 17, that's 1:7, ayah number 74, He said, وَلَوْلَا أَن ثَبَّتْنَاكَ لَقَدْ كِدْتَ تَرْكَنُ إِلَيْهِمْ شَيْئًا قَلِيلًا. O Prophet Muhammad, if we didn't, Allah is saying, if I didn't establish you and make you firm in your position, and make you firm as a prophet, لَقَدْ كِدْتَ تَرْكَنُ إِلَيْهِمْ شَيْئًا قَلِيلًا, then you're already close to turning towards and making making an inclination towards them slightly. So Allah is saying even to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that even look, establishing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and making him stay away from whatever the Quraysh and the kuffar of the Quraysh are calling him towards, Allah is saying that even that for him to stay firm is from Allah Azza wa Jal. So here Yusuf alayhi salam is putting his full trust in Allah and saying that I can fall prey to this, and I'm asking you, Allah, to just take me to the prison. I'd rather be in the prison and not face this every day. So فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ, in the next ayah number 34, Allah says, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ, He answered his dua. Now subhanAllah, he's going from one state to another. Look at where he's gone from. He's gone from his home to the well, from the well to the marketplace, from the marketplace to this place here, this palace. It was really good for a short time. After that, the fitness or the tribulation turns around towards him. And then what happens after that is, he's now going to the prison. Now in prison, when Allah answers his prayers, He says, فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ. By sending him to prison, Allah starts to save him from the plots of these women, because he's the one who listens and knowledgeable of everything that is going on. And then in the next ayah, Allah explains how. He says, ثُمَّ بَدَا لَهُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا رَأَوْا الْآيَاتِ لَيَسْجُنُنَّهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. What happened is, now this is again, we don't know clearly what was the reason why they sent him to prison. But the Mufassirin say, what happened is, Zulaykha's husband knows that his wife is completely gone insane for Yusuf alayhi salam. He's caught her ripping his shirt from behind and trying to put the blame on, ripping his shirt and trying to put the blame on Yusuf alayhi salam. He's told her, look, seek forgiveness from Yusuf. He knows that she's always, she's got just these love hearts in her eyes for Yusuf alayhi salam. And now the society, the women in the society have spread the news about his wife. And his wife doesn't even care. She doesn't care about her being the wife of the minister. She doesn't even care where she is, what she's got. She just wants Yusuf. Now this is what happens to certain people, that they go crazy for something. And what the Qur'an teaches us is that if you've got someone, like imagine like you've got a family member and they're in love with someone, and they're in love with someone where they can't, they shouldn't really be marrying, well, they probably can't even marry this person because of sometimes the difference in the faith, and sometimes they can marry the person, but probably that is going to destroy their future life. Because some people, they don't wake up until the love has, washed out of their eyes, and they say, you? Was I crazy for you? You serious? Right? Some people wake up after months, some people wake up after years. But when they wake up, it's too late because they've already had kids with them, or they've had a long relationship with them. So what do you do? Well, the only best, what the Qur'an is teaching us is that separation from, or making these people not be able to see each other is one way. Now, sometimes when they go crazy for someone, if you can get them married to them, that's probably the best thing. So I'm not telling you here that, look, just separate them because someone's fallen in love. You've got to assess the situation. Sometimes the only remedy is to just make them have the nikah, forget about everything else, and let them enjoy their halal life instead of making their life difficult. And sometimes it's the other way around. That is going to spoil their future completely destroy the future, because that other person they fall in love with is not really what they, what you see on first sight. But you have to make that choice. But if you wanted to sort of get that love out of the way, then it's got to be two different places that you separate them from seeing each other or contacting each other. And that's what Yusuf alayhi salam, he chose. So how did they put him in prison? Well, the minister knew that his wife has gone crazy for this individual. The women are talking about it. He's getting a bad name, and he's already heard that she's telling him that, look, this Yusuf, just get him out of the way. Then if just put him in prison. Then put him in prison. She's going on about it because she's told those women about it. She's going around and telling this, that if he doesn't do what I want. Now, of course, she's not saying it to her husband like that, but she's kind of making to her husband that, just get rid of him then. And her husband thought, what? Good idea. Let's get rid of him. Good idea. So he said, Yusuf, get in the prison. Right? So this was for him, it was like, I'm in a way protecting my honor. By Yusuf being in prison, my wife can't seduce Yusuf anymore. It saves my honor. Women in the society stop talking about me, stop talking about my wife, and that way we all can rest a bit. But Yusuf alayhi salam, for him, again, it's the lesser of the two evils. He goes into prison. And when he goes into prison, what happens, subhanallah al-azim, is that this is the nature of people who have good within themselves. I want to make a point here, which is once to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, somebody commented, one of the Sahaba, he commented, and he said, Messenger of Allah, he said, this person has been so bad to you. Why are you still being good? You think about it, someone's being bad and rude and cruel and so on, and all you're seeing is the victim is just being good. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said something along the lines of, by smiling, he said, what can I do? A vessel that contains something will only bring that out. Meaning that within the Prophet ﷺ, his vessel, his inner part, there's only khair and there's only goodness in there. You rattle that. You try to bring whatever is out of that. Because there's goodness in there, it will only pour out goodness. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that if we are good wherever we are, if you keep to the principles, this is really important. Don't drop your guards just because you're in a situation. Don't drop the guards. Don't try and change your character in different places. Keep one character. Keep the Muslim character. Be always honest. Be always good. Be always generous. Be always, talk to people nicely. Always smile. Be nice to people. Try and help people. When you carry on with these good characteristics, wherever you are, whether you're home, outside, whether you're at work, wherever you are, when you carry on with this, people establish that, that's a nice guy. Even though they might be crooks, they will talk about you in a nice way. You know, that guy, he's a nice guy, man. He's got a nice heart. He's a nice guy. So what happens is that he becomes popular in the prison. He comes in the prison and he becomes popular. Why? Because he's not there harming anyone. And the other prisoners are thinking, well, what's your crime? You know, what's your crime? And they look at this man, subhanallah. You look at this man, you just look at him, you think, wow, what is a guy like this doing in prison? And when Yusuf ﷺ gets inside, what is he doing? Well, he's a prophet, okay? He's a prophet inside the prison. So he's just turning towards Allah Azza wa Jalla. He's making his prayers just like he's making his du'as and so on. And the things that Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam, whatever they taught him, he's doing that. And you know, Allah is now giving him wahi as well. Now, in that, what happens is, when the prisoners start to know about him and they start talking about him, two prisoners come up to him. And these are two young men who come up to him. One of them says that, I've seen a dream. Arani a'siru khamra. I've seen myself in the dream that I'm pressing wine. And the other one said that I've seen that I'm carrying above my head some bread, and there are some birds that are pecking at the bread on my head, and they're basically eating it. Nabi'na bi ta'wili, tell us about this dream, the interpretation of this dream. Inna naraka minal muhsinin, we see you as an excellent person. We see you as a very good, virtuous and pious person. Now this is it. The lesson in this is what? That if you go, you know, there will always be people who hate you. Don't get me wrong. You can never be in a place in this world where someone's not going to hate you. I don't care how good you are. You can be the best man in the whole of this town, and there will be certain people who will hate you. Why? Because this is the nature of this world. The prophets had their enemies. Even prophets. Now prophets have never harmed anybody. They've never done anything wrong to anyone. But there's people who hate them. They hate them because who in the world is he to try and stop me doing my dodgy stuff? Huh? I want to get on with my dodgy stuff, and this man comes and tells everyone not to listen to. You know, like I told you about Shaykh Hasan, you know, the whole thing about Shaykh Hasan thing. The whole thing was that this man is going to corrupt their business, and that's why they hated him. In Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, they hated the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he was going to corrupt all their idols and you know, corrupt their fortune they were making off these idols, and that was the reason. Money, and the other thing is their status. Their status will be finished if they accept him as a prophet. So it doesn't matter how good you are, you're always going to get people gossiping about you, people hating you, and you'll have enemies. You cannot survive in this world without having some people who hate you for no reason. But what you can do is, you can become like Yusuf alayhi salam. I can become like Yusuf alayhi salam, where we try and carry on with the ihsan, with the excellent qualities and good character. And that draws people towards you. And from the number of people who hate you, Allah will give you 10 or 20 times more people, or maybe 100 times more people who like you for who you are. Even though they might be crooks, they will still look at you with a good eye. And this is what happens, that these two people, who are they? Well, they are two men, the two that told in the dream. They are two men who the king has thrown into prison. Why? Because the king had a cook who would cook him food, and he had a servant that would serve him the food. And he was about to eat his food, and he noticed something strange about it. He noticed something strange about it, and he didn't eat the food, but he made somebody else take a bite, and that person dropped dead. That person dropped dead. And the king was thinking, what? This is poisonous food that's been given to me. So straight away, two people got summoned. Either the servant who served me the food, put poison in it, or the cook who cooked the food, put the poison in it to kill me. And until the investigation is not carried out and finished, both of them have to go to prison. So now what happens is, the two that have come to Yusuf alayhi salam, both of them have seen separate dreams. Look how Allah makes things work. You could be, I've seen certain people here, and I'm saying this in this masjid, about individuals I've seen in this masjid. There are certain people who don't even know how to do business. But if Allah likes them because of their good qualities, Allah can give them money. And Allah can make them successful in business. And there are certain people who know everything about business. They can give you, they basically go to the toilet and come out and they've got 10 business ideas. And I'm not making this up. They come back from the toilet and they say, yeah man, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. Yeah man. Right? And they don't have any success in business. Why? Because these are the favors of Allah Azza wa Jalla, whoever He wants to give it to. Right? Whoever He wants to give it to. And you find here that there's two people who have been summoned in front of Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay? One is a cook and one is a servant. And both of them are trying to narrate to him these dreams. But look how Allah Azza wa Jalla has planned that in a prison, Allah is going to bring two people separately. He showed this one a dream, that one a dream, both tell him something, and that slowly is going to lead to Yusuf alayhi salam coming out of prison. How Allah makes these things happen. Now, who's Yusuf on this earth? He's a boy that was sold as a slave just a few years ago. And Allah is about to make him a king. And how He does that? By putting him in prison, and in prison He facilitates these two people to see him. Because they think that, we've heard, this man knows how to interpret dreams. So we're going to come to him and we want this dream interpreted. My point to you guys is that subhanAllah, sometimes the guy doesn't know how to do business, but Allah likes him, He'll facilitate people for him. And Allah does this. And sometimes people know how to do business or know how to do something, and they've got the skill and everything, but Allah doesn't want to give them the success. He just won't do it. And it's all in Allah's hands whether we get the success or we don't get the success. So Yusuf has heard the dream. Now, who's seen which dream? Well, the one who said that he saw himself pressing wine, he's the one that is serving the king. And he serves the king wine as well. Right? So he's the servant. And the one who sees that he's got birds on his head, or he's got bread on his head, and from that birds are pecking at it and eating it, or ravishing it on his head, he's the cook. And the criminal who actually poisoned the king was the cook. He was the one who saw the bread on his head and the birds pecking on that. And the innocent one was the other one who saw himself just pressing wine, and that's all he saw. Now Yusuf alayhi salam understood. He first talked to them and he said, okay, who are you two guys? And this is the thing about dreams, is that before you interpret dreams, you've got to know about the character. So they both said, look, we're both here in prison because the king threw us into prison for this reason, blah, 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 blah. They gave the whole story. So now that he got the context, he could fit the whole dream into the context. He knew straight away what the interpretation is. Now, what's important again for you is, if you see a dream, you can't just call somebody and just say, look, I've seen this dream and just give me an interpretation. You can't. They've got to know you. And the better they know you, the more precise they can be about your dream. So please, take that as a lesson as well. So now what happens is that Yusuf he already knows the interpretation. He can give them the interpretation straight away, but he doesn't. He notices that these two guys who are near to the king and so close to the king, they are mushriks, they are polytheists. And Yusuf obviously he's a prophet, and he's nothing, he's the total opposite of being a polytheist. He's a monotheist. So Yusuf takes this opportunity to try and give them da'wah, and he's going to call them towards Allah Azza wa Jal. And calling them towards Allah, you can imagine two guys, one of them is a criminal and one of them is an innocent person, but both of them are prisoners, have come to you and they just want an answer from you. And they've said, look, just give us the interpretation. Now, Yusuf knows that they're going to want their answer quickly. If he starts to tell them, okay guys, let me tell you a bit about myself, and he starts to say, all the things he's going to say, and he starts to go into dawah, they're going to think, man, this guy, what's wrong with him? We just come to him for a quick question, quick answer, and he goes on about his whole history and his background and about worshipping gods and whether you should worship one god or several gods. They probably would have just sat there and they would probably said, man, this is not right. They would have lost their dignity for Yusuf alayhi salam. So in order to save himself from this, what he says is, this is in ayah number 37, he says, لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله. He said, the food is about to be served, the food time is coming. It could be like 10 minutes, could be 15 minutes. The food in the prison is about to be given to all the prisoners. He said, the food that you're about to be provided with, before that food arrives, you'll get your answer. Before the food arrives, you'll get your answer. Now what he did do by this, this is the only place in the Qur'an you'll find this tactic of giving da'wah, which is to make the people you're giving da'wah to make them believe that it's only a short time. You give them something to believe you're not going to blabber on for a long time. And giving short da'wah to a person who knows you're only going to talk to them for a few minutes only and you stick to that is more striking than sitting there and just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and making yourself bored. Understand? You guys, you come here every single week and you sit here for this because it's an hour session. If I made this one day, 1.5 hours, another day, 2 hours, another day, 1 hour, another day, you would like, yeah man, enough man, I've had enough, you start walking up. But it's an hour, roughly an hour, that's why, you stay here. So giving a precise time is really important, especially for da'wah. Because people who are given da'wah to, sometimes they can switch off. So he's told them, food is coming. Before the food comes, I'll give it to you. So they're now okay, we're going to get our answer. So they're not going to leave him now. They'll get the answer. Now, he caught them with this. And then in between that, he gave them the da'wah. He said, you know how I know these things? Subhanallah, look how he's giving the da'wah. Before he can get to his real thing is, he wants to tell them about Allah. And he wants them to become monotheists as well. And he wants them to leave their gods and the belief of their gods. But how he starts is he's got to link it all. Now that's another thing about da'wah. You can't just suddenly say, hey, yeah, all right, you need something more. Before you carry on, hey, you Muslim? You're not Muslim? Okay, 1 minute. Hear this, yeah? You can't just start, suddenly just come up to a person and give him dry da'wah like that. This is called dry da'wah. You've got no relationship with the person. You're trying to just hammer them with quotes. That's not a good way of giving da'wah. The good way is that you make a relationship or you establish some belief that they see some goodness within yourself. Whether it's good characteristics, whatever it is, they've got to see something good in you and trust you or believe you or be inclined towards you for your da'wah to go straight in within them. So what he says, ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. You know how I know all these dreams and interpretation? Because he's already interpreted dreams for other prisoners. And those prisoners went and talked to other prisoners, and these two prisoners then finally came to him with their dreams. He said, my Lord taught me. He said, إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ مِلَّةَ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. He said, I'm one of those individuals that I've completely stayed away from those who don't believe in Allah, who don't believe in the akhirah. There is an akhirah, there is an afterworld, and there's people who deny that. Well, I'm not from them. We've always stayed away from them. And who I followed is, I followed the way of my forefathers. So now he's giving a whole, what you call a silsila, a chain of people behind him. Then me, I followed, Ibrahim was my great-grandfather, Ishaq was my grandfather, Yaqub was my father, he's my father, and I followed their way. This is the line that I followed. مَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرِكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. We've never ever seen that we should assign partners with Allah in any way. This is what we've had. Right? So my great-grandfather was blessed, and my grandfather, my father blessed, and ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا. This is Allah's bounty. See, Allah gave us all of these, knowing the interpretation of dreams. Just as my forefathers knew, I know too. وَعَلَى النَّاسِ, and upon many people He's given His favors. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ, but most people don't even thank God for what He gave to them. And these qualities that I've got are straight from God. يَا صَاحِبَ السِّجْنِ. And how He addresses them. He says, صَاحِبَ السِّجْنِ. He says, "O my two companions of this prison." So He's dropped Himself down to their level. Sahib. Sahib means you're my companion. You're on my level. You're on my level. I'm on your level. We're both here together on the same level. Now, it's not saying that Yusuf a.s. is a criminal because he's dropped himself down to their level. No, it's a way of making people familiar to yourself. And in da'wah, you have to do this. You have to drop yourself and make them seem that you and them are par with one another. And there's no difference. And when you do that, they kind of think, you know what? This guy's on my level. This guy thinks like I think. That's what you need to do, try and bring them sort of in towards, towards the khair and towards the goodness. So he says, أَرْبَابُ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. Are you telling me that if you have several gods, that's better than having one Allah who's one? Are you trying to tell me that you should worship this one and then give some time to this one and give some time to this one and that God and this God and that God and so many gods you've got to give your time to? If you think about it, it's a lot of work. You think about it, right? You think about it. Our deen, alhamdulillah, our deen is, you've got Allah, that's it. All your attention towards Allah. Imagine we had to come to the masjid and we had to give time and your attention towards this God for a little while, and then that one, and then that one, and then this one, and don't forget that one, and that other one in the corner, and the other one, and the one that's on the wall as well. It'll be Taraweeh every night, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'll be Taraweeh every night. You've got to come inside the masjid, you've got to do this one, and that one, and that one, and then if you're going to give some sadaqah, it's going to sadaqah on behalf of this one, sadaqah on behalf of that one. Man, your pockets are going to be crying. Sadaqah for, and that's, he said, look, isn't it better that you just have one? That you put all your emotions and everything else towards one Lord, that's Allah. And then he said, مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءً. What are you really worshipping except for names that you've given and your forefathers have given? مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ. The real one, God hasn't even given you any power or any establishment to make these names. Now, this is something which I've already covered under the story of under the story of Hud alayhi salam. So, this thing about names and gods, being given names. So I'm not going to go into the tafsir of that because I've covered it over there. And then he says to them, إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهِ. He says, إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا إِيَّهِ. Nothing will happen except with that one God. No command, no judgment, nothing is ever passed except with that one God. Now, why is he saying all of this? You know why? Because all the polytheists that believe in polytheism, they have amongst themselves a belief that some gods are stronger than others. They have this belief. Even Hinduism, if you look into it, they've got belief that there's a hierarchy within gods. And some gods are stronger than other gods. And if you look into other systems in the world where polytheism exists, they will have this. Only a few say 50-50. This God has 50% and that God has 50%. But then again, what they do is, they like the fire worshippers, they believe in two gods. One God of good and one God of evil. So they think one God is bad and one God is really good. And therefore, what are you going to do naturally? If you think one God is bad and trying to put all the evil in the world, and the other one is one God for good and trying to put all the good in the world, but you have to worship both of them, which one are you going to worship with pleasure? The second one, right? The one that's putting good, right? Not the one that's putting evil on the earth. And therefore, you'd see that as a greater God, or the God that you want to take over the other God, the God of evil. So even in Hinduism and others, they have this thing that one God is ultimately the biggest God. Even the Quraysh of Mecca around the Prophet ﷺ, who had 360 idols, they had this hierarchy system as well. And they said, well, these are the little gods, and there's the big gods, and that's Hubul, the big one, and then there's Manat, Uzza, and Lat. They're the three big gods, right? There are three big gods. And then they said, there's a bigger one, Allah. There's a bigger one, Allah. And to get to Allah, you need to go through Lat, Uzza, Manat, or one of the other ones, because Allah's too big. That's what they made this up. Allah's too big, so you have to go to the little one or the big ones on the earth to get to the biggest one, right? So the funny thing was that there are certain times that even these polytheists, they give up polytheism and they only see the one God. And one of the ones that Allah said in the Qur'an is that when they used to go out to the seas, so they go out to the seas, and what happens is that, subhanallah, you know, this is one of the people that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to be you know, taken taken out, because he had caused so much harm to the Muslims. He fled Makkah. And he fled all the way to you know, to the shores. He got onto a ship, and on that ship he basically sailed across, and he thought, you know what, I'm leaving this whole city of Makkah. And on this ship, what happens is that a whole storm comes around it. And Allah has mentioned this in several places of the Qur'an, that a storm comes, the seas start to surge, you know, and it starts to throw the boat from left to right. The darkness prevails over, the rains come down, the winds are blowing, and this ship any moment is going to turn over. And all the sailors are, you know, trying to do their best to keep this ship afloat. And this man who's fled from Makkah, who's a polytheist, he says, "Oh Lat, Uzza, Manat, save us." And so on. And the sailors came rushing down towards him, grabbed hold of him, put their hand on his mouth, and they said, you're crazy? He said, "What do you mean? Why are you taking the name of Lat and Uzza and Manat?" So there are gods. He said, "But you're crazy, man. You're going to drive this ship." He said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're not a sailor, you don't know. When this happens, we sailors know there's only one God that saves you. That is Allah. You don't take no other God's name here, otherwise you go deep down. You understand? You keep your mouth shut. No Lat here, no Manat here, no Uzza, no Hubul, nobody." And then this guy thought, damn, you know, all these years we thought they were real, yeah? He just turned to Allah and he said, "Oh Allah, you saved me from this shipwreck, from this ship being wrecked, and I'm going to go straight to Muhammad, and I'm going to accept the faith that he's been saying." Because how can it be true that when it comes to the real crisis, only the one God can save you? And when it's other crises, then other gods can share the saving you, right? So this is what Yusuf alayhi salam is saying, that don't you guys see, you've got a hierarchy system. And ultimately you've got this one God that is the God that saves you, and you know that. Inil hukmu illa lillah. You know that the real judgment is of that God. So why don't you just believe there's only one God? Why are you actually making false beliefs of all these other gods? Amara Allah ta'budu illa iyyah. He's told us not to worship anyone except for him. Dhalika dinul qayyim. This is the established religion. But most people don't really know about this religion. Now subhanAllah, look how much da'wah he's given them within that time that the food is coming. So now the food is about to come, and he says, "Ya sahibay sijin," O my companions of this prison. Amma ahadukana. Subhanallah. Now look at the hikmah and the wisdom of his. If he said this, if he said, "Yeah, you know, you saw this dream about you giving wine, pressing wine, you're going to be the one that will be freed. And you that seen the dream about birds on your head, eating bread from the top of your head, you're going to be the one that's going to be hanged." If he said that, can you imagine the riot in the prison he would have caused? Can you imagine that this guy would have probably killed this other one? You imagine what would have happened? But he didn't. The hikmah was, he said, "Amma ahadukuma." One of you two is going to be freed from this prison and is going to serve the king wine. And as for another one of you two, he didn't say which one. He will be hanged and birds will eat from his head, meaning that, you know, the hawks, right, and the vultures will eat his head. قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ الَّذِي فِيهِ تَسْتَفْتِيَانِ. It's over now, the matter that you've been asking me regarding this. But then he did something. He knew that he knew which one is going to be freed. So the time came when the two prisoners that he had talked to were about to leave to go and be sentenced. So the actual court date, whatever, came, and both of them, came to him to say goodbye to him. So he met them nicely, and in all that time he didn't say which one of them is going to be hanged and which one is going to be freed. But he met one, and then he met the other one, and the one he thought and he knew from the dream that he's the one. Who was he? He was the prisoner who saw himself serving wine just pressing wine. He's going to be the one who will go back and serve the king once again. Yusuf alayhi salam said to him, when you get out of prison, I'm just letting you know that you're the one who's going to be freed. Now, why did he say this to him? Because he wanted him to believe in the truthfulness of Yusuf alayhi salam. So once he knows that, wow, I saw this dream and this man knew I was going to be freed before I was even freed. He said, when you go out, you're going to become free. I want you to just to put a little word in the king's ear that someone like me is in prison, innocent, I haven't done anything wrong. I just want you to put that word in his ear so that I can get freed. So he said, don't worry, thanks, don't worry. And he shook his hands on it. He went away. And when he got freed, man, the joy of getting freed from prison. Shaitan, the devil, was at his game. The shaitan made him forget to mention. It's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll get the chance to do it and say it to the king. But he just completely forgot about Yusuf alayhi salam in the prison. And Yusuf alayhi salam, as a result, he remained in the prison for several years. Now this is between 3 to 10 years. And some tafsirs, quite a few tafsirs say that it was 7 more years that he stayed in prison. And some tafsirs say that he stayed anywhere between 3 to 10 years. So a few more years he stayed in prison. Now Allah allowed the shaitan to make this guy forget. Now there's a hikmah of Allah. We don't know the reason. But it could be most likely why? Because if he went, now you think about it, and these last few things I'm going to say and then we can have the adhan, yeah? Imagine this guy went to the king and said, King, I'm telling you, there's a dude in the prison. He's so cool. He knew I was going to be freed. Huh? Serious? What are you saying? Look, this guy, I saw this dream here. I was pressing wine and we went to him and he said, one of us two, this is going to happen. And he's the one who told me about this, and it's going to be, I'm telling you, you need to get this guy out. He's so good. He tells people, tell them the dreams, and he's got such good characteristics, and we all love him inside the prison, and I'm telling you, he's innocent. The king's going to be, really? There's no real reason for the king to give any weight to this guy. And this guy is going to probably make himself look a little ugly in trying to come out of prison and then get another man out of prison just because he's got his friend inside there. It's not a case that will pull the king to make a quick decision. But imagine, Allah allows the shaitan to make the man forget to say anything. And then later, what we're going to hear in the next session is, the king has a dream. This man has said nothing to him at all. He's got his servant back. The king has a dream, and suddenly, when all his courtiers tell him that, nah, forget it, just a dream. And this man says, oh, king, whoa. You want to know what this dream means? You got to send me in this prison. There's a man in there, whatever he's going to say is going to work. Because 7 years ago, when I was in there, I had a dream, and this man, what he said happened, and I forgot to tell you about him. And he said the other man's going to be hanged, and he got hanged. And so many dreams he interpreted in the dream, in the prison, so many dreams he did, and all of them came true. And I'm telling you, king, this man is awesome. Now, when he says it at that time when the king needs him, do you think that's going to be the time that the king will say, yeah, go and fetch him right now? Or do you think it will be as soon as he comes out of prison? Which one? Which one? The first one, right? That's why Allah allowed the shaitan to make him forget. Yusuf took his means up, but Allah had another plan. Allah wanted to wait till the moment the king has his dream, because the king should only have his dream when those years of bad crops and good harvest and bad harvest are about to come up. That's when Allah wanted to plan it. So sometimes when Allah allows shaitan to get at us, or get at someone, like basically shaitan never got at Yusuf, but he made somebody else forget. When sometimes Allah allows that, He allows it for a good reason. And don't question Allah on anything that He does. Jazakumullah khair. Wa akhiru da'wana. And alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Inshallah next week we will carry on.
الذكر علم ونور الحاملات سنا ونور والرسمات هنا سرور يا حلوات تلك السنين